Excuse me, good morning. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate especially those of you who have come from Memphis. I'm Jason Mumpower, the Comptroller of the Treasury. Today, we are here to release the completed independent forensic audit of the Memphis-Shelby County School System. Right here's a copy of it, 688 pages of easy reading. Let me say that the review today is definitely, unequivocally, unlike anything our office has undertaken for a local school district. It represents months of work by independent forensic auditors, attorneys, certified fraud examiners, and subject matter experts. Together, the 4 volumes in this audit that I just showed you examine the district's governance, the financial management, the procurement practices, the internal controls, the cybersecurity, the TennCare billing, with a special focus on the Whitehaven Herbert STEM Center project. Simply put, this is the most comprehensive review ever conducted of the Memphis-Shelby County Schools. And unfortunately, what it reports is deeply troubling. This report documents years of poor management. It documents weak internal controls. It documents inadequate oversight. It documents procurement practices that all too often ignored established policies which open the door for fraud, waste, and abuse. This audit documents a culture where it was standard practice for documentation to be missing, for accountability to be lacking, and for basic safeguards that taxpayers expect. Those things were just ignored and not followed at all. Public education depends on public trust. When taxpayers invest almost $2 billion a year in a public school system, they deserve confidence that every dollar is managed responsibly. This report shows that confidence has been compromised. Now, as you hear about individual contracts and individual findings in the report today, I want to caution you against viewing this as just a series of isolated incidents. That would miss the larger point. The larger point is that this report identifies systemic weaknesses throughout the Memphis-Shelby County School System. The first thing I would say is I would encourage you to read the report. You will see how pervasive the problems are. I promise you, if you get into this report, especially the forensic report that we're releasing today, and you start reading, you're going to find it so outrageous, it's going to be more interesting than whatever beach read you're using by the pool this year. This report reads like a novel, and you will be both flabbergasted and disappointed in what's been going on in the Memphis-Shelby County School System. You know, in this report, the same issues appear again and again: weak procurement controls, poor documentation, inadequate oversight, insufficient contract management, a total lack of accountability. These repeated failures have created an environment where waste and abuse and policy violations and the likelihood for fraud exist on a daily basis. Now, the forensic audit part, which is the part we're able to finally release today that's been completed, examined district operations during fiscal years 2022 through 2024. Listen to this. In the part we're releasing today, the auditors identified approximately $54 million in transactions that were determined to be consistent with evidence of potential fraud, waste, or abuse. They also identified approximately $65 million involving failures to comply with district policies and procedures. Adding up, that is more than $119 million worth of question costs just in that window of time. None of this, I don't even need to say this, none of this should be acceptable in an organization that is responsible for educating children and managing billions of taxpayer dollars. The numbers alone are alarming, but the numbers alone are only part of the story. The largest concentration of the findings in this report involve procurement and contracting. You know, when you think about government procurement, competitive procurement policies exist for a reason. It protects taxpayers, it protects fairness, it reflects or reduces opportunities for favoritism in procurement. So in the report today, one example you'll see involved a custodial services contract worth more than $48 million. The evaluation committee recommended awarding this contract to multiple vendors, which would have been consistent with the advertised request for proposal. Instead, for whatever reason, the contract was awarded to a single vendor without determined justification for that award. 18 months later, the district terminated that contract because of poor performance. Another example, and one again you'll want to read about in the report, involved project management contracts with a company called All World Project Management. Auditors found that one construction project was reassigned to All World, even though another firm submitted a proposal that was 74% less than All World's price. The report also found concerns involving vendor influence over future procurement documents and All World employees participating in interviews for district positions that could influence future contracts. The auditors found repeated instances where safeguards broke down and where contracts rose to the level of fraud, waste, or abuse. Now, when we're talking about and when we're thinking about the Memphis-Shelby County school systems, this is not just an issue for Memphis and Shelby County. This is an issue for the state of Tennessee. 10% of K through 12 students statewide attend the Memphis-Shelby County school system. 10% of all K through 12 students statewide in that one school system. 15%, or 1 out of every 7 state education dollars, is spent in the Memphis-Shelby County school system. We're talking a lot about the operational failures and the business failures of this school system today. But we all know that they also have a dismal educational attainment rate. This is the future workforce, not only of Memphis and Shelby County, this is the future workforce of West Tennessee and Tennessee as a whole. What you're hearing today is in no way defensible. They've dropped the ball. This documentation, this factual report is in no way defensible by any member of the current Board of Education, by anyone representing Memphis and Shelby County. This is ludicrous. It is not defensible in any way. Because of this, the General Assembly recently enacted the Educational Oversight Board for the Memphis-Shelby County Schools. I certainly believe this action reflects the seriousness of the issues identified and justified by this report over the last several years. The great thing about this report is this report provides that oversight board with an independent roadmap. This report identifies where the weaknesses exist. This report identifies the internal control failures that allowed these weaknesses to persist and occur. And this report provides detailed recommendations for how to correct them. The success of this effort will not be measured by today's report. It will be measured by whether or not these recommendations are implemented. To share more thoughts on this issue of the day and on this report, we have others on stage with us. And Speaker Sexton, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. And, we stood here several months ago and had the initial audit come out. And you had people who were saying, well, it's only a certain percentage, and minimize the report. And I'm sure you're going to have people today who are going to try to minimize this report. But what the report shows is cronyism, favoritism, a lot of different things going on in the Shelby County schools that we knew was going on that now is documented. The fostering of public corruption of the school system by the school board, by those in administration, is astronomical in this report. You can't give contracts to your buddy and try to get some siphon back to you. You can't try to go in and get your friends contracts without the bid process. You can't go buy buildings and refurbish them and then sell them later when you never used them at a loss. What you have going on in Shelby County Schools is a systematic failure. There is no fixing. There is no confidence. No one should have any confidence in the school board or the current administration of the school system or even the county mayor down there to do anything to turn this around. This happened on their watch as they were tasked with overseeing it, and they failed. Not only failed slightly, fell to the tunes of over $100 million of fraud, waste, and abuse. What do you tell the parents in Shelby County? What do you tell the students where there's only, at best, 30% are proficient in reading and math, while you have all this other stuff going on? You're there to educate the kids and have oversight and make sure that you're using the money the way it should be done and using the processes and the internal controls to make sure you're doing it correctly. Unfortunately, they did not. And I guarantee you, if we wanted to pay more money, which we don't because we paid enough, if we wanted to go back prior years, we would find that this has been there for decades. It has been systemic for decades. It didn't matter who the administrator is or who's the director of schools. It does not matter who the school board is. It has happened under everyone's watch. And if they don't know about it, then they're not doing their job. The legislation that we passed is statewide. It has the capability of going into any school district that meets the requirements, performing these tasks, and having the state come in and intervene and bringing in local intervention. That's what the board of managers there are to do. You need a new board of managers to come in to fix this mess. Not only do you need to fix the incredible lacking results of educating the children in Shelby County, but now you're gonna have to come in and clean up the amount of waste, fraud, and abuse and the lack of internal controls, the lack of procedures, the favoritism, the cronyism. You cannot sit here and logically and rationally tell anybody in the state of Tennessee that you have confidence in those currently in charge of doing that. But you're going to hear that from probably members on the other side of the aisle, because that's the only thing they have. There's no explanation for this. They're going to try to defend it the best they can to protect what they have. But unfortunately, what they have is a subpar education system that has run amok with as much fraud, waste, and abuse. And so I stand here today looking forward to moving and making Shelby County and Memphis education great, making their economy great. It starts with this. This is a transformation of that. This will help future generations. And I call on the mayor, and I call on the school board, and I call on the school system to withdraw their lawsuit. They need to withdraw their lawsuit, because otherwise all they're doing is delaying the change that is needed in that school system. And if they're unwilling to withdraw it, I'm asking the parents and the residents of Shelby County and Memphis to go and ask them to withdraw it. Time is of the essence to turn this around. How much more damage are we going to allow them to have and continue in this regard? So that's what I ask them to do today. I appreciate the report. I appreciate everything coming to light. And hopefully there'll be a new day coming to Memphis and Shelby County in the very near future. And with that, I'll be happy to turn it over to Chairman Mark White.
Thank you, Speaker Sexton. My name is Mark White. I represent District 83, which is Memphis and parts of Shelby County. And my comments are going to center around my role as education chairman for the past 12 years, and the responsibility that we have as a state to all 147 of our school districts. What value do we as a state, as a people, place on a child's education? We as a state require parents to enroll their children in school as early as 5 years of age for the next 12 to 13 years. K through 12, we call it 5 years to 18 years. We ask our districts to train a student in the basics of reading, writing, and math. And why? To give them the skills so that at 18 they can function in a world and a society that demands the knowledge, that demands competent skills. As chair of the House Education Committee for the past 12 years, I have seen districts that excel in this and seen those who fail. The Memphis-Shelby County School District has failed the children of my community. Only 1 out of every 4 graduate proficient in the skills of reading and less than that in the skills of math. Memphis-Shelby County Schools is a district, as has been mentioned, of 100,000 students, or 10% of the students attending school in Tennessee, 1 million students total. Of the $7.5 billion that the taxpayers of Tennessee put to our schools to invest in K through 12 education, approximately $1 billion is sent to this one district. The other 146 districts split the remaining $6.5 billion. And today we see at a minimum of over $100 million misused and wasted in just 3 years, 2022, 23, and 24. If we wanted to add 25 and 26, where Speaker Sexton said, go back and forth, we were in some major money. But when we started this journey 2 years ago to reach the conclusion we present today, it was not the money that I was focused on. It was the continued decline in learning of our students. Prosperity for a city and for a state and for a person depends on their strong education. Education is also a requirement for a functioning society. If we continue to allow our current system to deprive our youth a great education, they will be deprived of lifelong success. Well, this failure has got to stop today. The Tennessee General Assembly passed legislation, as was mentioned, this past April, with the full constitutional authority and responsibility, and we established a 9-member oversight board for a 4-year period to reverse decades of failure of our Memphis school system. Evidence points today that dollars meant for our students have been stolen. Every citizen, every parent should be outraged until change happens. And I am determined to do my best to make any changes necessary to ensure our students have every opportunity in the Memphis school system to receive a quality education. And I want to thank, at this point in time, Governor Lee, Speaker Sexton, Lieutenant Governor McNally, Comptroller Mumpower, Senator Brent Taylor, who carried the bill in the Senate, CLA team who has brought us this audit, and the majority of the members in the House and the Senate for the past 2 years for their support in making this change happen. Today, things need to change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as I begin to wrap it up, I do have to say a special thanks as well to Speaker Sexton, Chairman White, Senator Taylor, members of the Tennessee House and Senate, Governor Lee, who entrusted the Comptroller's Office to oversee and contract for this forensic audit. I do have to thank Clifton Larson Allen, CLA, a national law accounting firm who we've worked with multiple times, and some of who are here with me today on stage and in the audience. We have enjoyed working with them and appreciate their careful work. Now, before we close, let me make an important point. What we've delivered to you today is the final part of this forensic audit. It is not a criminal indictment. That's not what an audit is. An audit does not determine criminal liability. This will be a job for prosecutors. The purpose of this report was to independently examine the facts, to follow the evidence, to identify the weaknesses, and to recommend improvements. And it has done exactly that. Where in this report the auditors have identified matters for appropriate additional review by law enforcement or other authorities, I assure you we will be taking this to the local district attorney and perhaps more importantly to the United States Attorney for further review and the appropriate action. Now, I have said before, and I will say again, the findings in this report absolutely represent some of the worst organizational management we have ever seen anywhere in government. The failures, as I said, the failures are both unacceptable and indefensible. But the good news is they are correctable. The teachers, the students, the parents, the taxpayers of Shelby County and Tennessee deserve a school system that operates with integrity and transparency and accountability. Accountability does not end with today's report. Accountability begins by implementing the recommendations in this report, and that is the work that begins today. Thank you all for being here. If you have any questions, we'll see what we can do to address those in light of the ongoing litigation. There is more than $119 million worth of fraud, waste, abuse, or question costs identified in the report.
Why did it take so long? You guys think it's been going on? Why did it take so long to kind of figure it out?
Well, I will say it has been suspected for a long time, but thankfully we have great leaders like Speaker Sexton and Chairman White who brought this to the forefront in the legislature in the last couple years, and here we are. Yes.
Hey, I'm Ezekiel with ABC 24. Has anybody been criminally charged? This is a lot of potential fraud you guys are mentioning. You guys keep using this word as if they've been criminally charged, and if not, what should people of Shelby County and Tennessee expect?
Well, again, the audit report is just released today. We have literally, this event was for the purpose of releasing this report. So it is only now that the evidence found in this report can be directed to the appropriate law enforcement channels for review and possible indictment. I believe there is information in this report that absolutely could lead to indictment, but that's not for me to say. We have to work again with the local district attorney and perhaps more importantly, the United States Attorney, who I can assure you is anxiously awaiting a copy of this report.
Talked about how these are systemic failures that need the assistance of the takeover intervention that you have produced. The chairman of that board, Billy Orgel, was in the final months of his elected term in 2022 when the district board approved the contract that makes up most of the millions of dollars in suspected abuse found in this report. What gives you the confidence that someone who was on the board during that time will be able to set the district straight in the future 4 years of this proposed takeover?
Yeah, look, what he had said in that contract is there was the recommendation to do it multiple, and there was some recommendation to do it single. Mr. Orwell will be but one vote. I think you would have to dig into who was behind the scenes pushing the school board to make that decision, first of all. Second of all, I think what this audit showed is the failures that were there. I think Mr. Orgel, I know Billy, he's a fine individual, outstanding, follows the law. And so I think having him come back in with a little bit of institutional knowledge and having a better clarity of what it looks like, along with others who don't, have not served in that capacity, and also having one individual from outside Shelby County that I know all y'all looked at and said, why do we need that? Without any preconceived notions will help us move that in that direction. Look, I think that, I would say that you could also have lower administration people in the department or in the school system who didn't know all this was going on. They could have been told to do X, Y, Z. I think that's more digging on your all's part. Go back and look at the superintendents and the director of schools at that time. Start asking them the tough questions. Did you know this was going on? How did you not know this was going on? Ask the people who are doing their accounting, who's doing their bookkeeping. Did you know about this? What I will say is in here, there's a lot of bad things in here. I will tell you the one good thing that Shelby County Schools tried to do was to hide the receipts and the files from the auditors. They did a very good job of that because it took us 6 months or so to figure that out, where those were. And they had them in a side room and all this and not organized and said they couldn't have it. And they tried to stop the audit for a long time. That's what slowed us down. And so there were people there who were trying to stop this from happening, to your question. Or whoever is, they did not want this audit done. They didn't want this to be uncovered. Because hopefully, I don't have any confidence in General Mulroy. He won't prosecute violent criminals. He won't prosecute illegals. I'm sure he's not going to prosecute white-collar crime if he's not doing the others. But I have great confidence in General Donovan, and I'm hopeful that he will take a look at this and see what needs to be done and prosecute who needs that be done. Because at the end, you have to remember, these are federal dollars as well. It's not just state dollars, so that is a federal crime. And so I look forward to seeing what General Donovan says in the near future.
Thank you. As a follow-up question, the legislation that was passed for the takeover has a requirement of the new oversight board to create a review and process timeline for the elected board to produce contracts and evidence of its spending for a 15 business day approval before the board was halted if they get to create that. And the elected board had recently passed a 4-year contract for transportation that was $200 million over 4 years, and an increase from previous years. Do you have an expectation that the appointees should have had that process in place before that final school board meeting, elected school board meeting at the end of June?
Well, I mean, you can't really do anything until, one, you're appointed, and two, the law's effective, because until then, you can't have the authority. What I will say is they had their meeting. They were starting in the process of moving in that direction. I do know that the attorney that they were using of the school system refused to cooperate with them, did not want to work with the new board of managers, right? Was told not to. And so then we had to intervene and have the Attorney General's office help them on legal matters. So this notion of coming in with the board of managers and being able to turn things around when the locals are unwilling to help you makes it extremely difficult. They've had one meeting. Hopefully the judge will make a decision here on this. And as I said, hopefully they'll withdraw their lawsuit and allow this to go forward and start having the process. But one meeting, you can't functionally do that in one meeting. I think they were on the process of doing that, but they did have a hiccup because the local attorney there, whoever was on the school board, was not helping them answer their questions and how to move forward, unfortunately.
One more.
Over here.
Hi, Kayla Solomon, Fox 13, Comptroller of North Carolina, questions for you. I know you mentioned that this is in no way any type of criminal indictment, but your office is in charge of also taking a look at the money and the spending that happens throughout the state. What action can your office take moving forward to oversee the money as far as the Shelby County School District goes?
Well, we're delighted to have this roadmap as well. This forensic audit is a much deeper review than is able to be done on an annual basis. So we're glad to have this roadmap to help us know where to look in the future as well. And we will be working with the new oversight board. We will be following this roadmap. We will be working with auditors to look at some of this stuff on a more regular basis that we haven't been able to see before. So I think this is, again, a starting point.
One last question. Do you mind going into the action news 5? Comptroller Howard, this is for you as well. I know you said that there have been previous audits, just yearly audits of MSCS. Can you kind of talk to how none of this was found in those previous audits?
Thank you. A totally different type of audit, kind of a review of different things. And so that is why it was so important that the legislature asked for and authorized this much deeper forensic audit. Of course, we also provide in here, and we provided earlier this spring, a review of the internal controls, a review of the IT and cybersecurity, and things like that. So this audit is much, much, much more comprehensive than any of those F&C audits that have happened on an annual basis. Let me say this. Memphis is not just a great Tennessee city. Shelby County is not just a great Tennessee county. Memphis and Shelby County are great American cities, and it's a great American county. It has global influence. The children, the parents, the taxpayers of Memphis and Shelby County need to have more confidence in their school system. Thank you all for being here today. I urge you, all of you in the media in particular, read this report. We've provided you an executive summary. The report is online for you. I promise you, it reads better than any novel that you're going to pick up at the bookstore this summer. When you start reading the findings in these contracts, you will be shocked, and you will be disappointed, and you will be outraged, just like we are. Thank you very much.
I just have one question, sir. What were the red flags that led to the initiation of the audit and the receipt of the audit in and of itself, and the duration and the process of the audit?
Well, it might be better for Representative White or Speaker Sexton, but the red flag is obviously the pitiful educational attainment, which is just an indicator of all this other stuff.
Yes, I can address that. The red flags, like I say, as chairman of education, I've been up here 17 years, chairman of education for 12. The red flags is when we see test scores come back. We compare across the state. We want Tennessee to be number one out of 50 states. And the red flags were year after year after year, we never get to proficiency. You have 100,000 students, only one out of every 4 ever hit proficiency. That means you have a graduating class that rolls out of the system of about 8,000 students every year. That means 6,000 of them are hitting the streets, not ready to have the skills to get a good job, and only 2,000 are. So that's the red flags. I've been a resident of Memphis since 1966. So these are things that we know going on. Thank goodness we had leadership in the government here that enabled us to have this forensic audit so that we could prove what we already knew. And so we're going to hold everybody. This bill that we wrote is for every 147 school districts across the state. So the red flags are, if you're not performing academically, something's going on.
Thank you all. Thank you.